back here. Christy is still entrusting me, perhaps, with some Fridays to guest host for her. This is Tobias. And tonight we have Santos Bonacci with us from Melbourne, Australia. I love technology. Pretty soon we're actually going to have the true internet, so we don't even need to use the internet anymore. Pretty soon, I predict, we'll actually go back to actual direct connection with all of us as souls on the planet. But we've got a ways to go. So I think tonight, and I'm going to let him do most of the talking, of course, but Santos is going to talk about a bigger perspective. He calls it astral theology. But I have a sense we're going to be talking about the larger picture from a galactic, or at least our solar system, our particular sun's science. And this will be then and he'll probably bring it personal as well. So, Santos, why don't I do this? Are you there?
Yes.
So why don't you, whatever you want to say about your personal journey that brought you to this work you do, and I want to say I really loved it. I watched a video, or part of one the other day, as it was posted on our Facebook group, Course of Awakening, and I like your approach of, it's like a scientific approach, but it has to do with souls and spirits and the larger picture. And this is the merging that finally is coming back, where we don't have the division of science and spirit. So with that, how did you arrive at this, or what inspired you? What turned you on to become really an expert at this from what I've seen so far?
Yes, well, that's that's a big one to answer, but a good one, because we are in the information age, and we do have so many resources to understand our history, not like we are being taught in our universities and our institutions. You see, they have an agenda, and they are still teaching the masses by means of control. Mm-hmm. Rome has never let go of her control, and she controls all the universities. And so they tell people what they want people to believe about history. So, but because we're in the information age, we're so blessed. Really.
Yes.
But my journey, am I speaking with Tobias, or?
Yep, you're speaking with Tobias. I'm right here. I'm listening to you.
Well, Tobias, my journey is like this. I'm a truth seeker. Now, I was a Jehovah's Witness for most of my life. My parents became Jehovah's Witnesses. They migrated from Italy in '56 and got married, met each other in Australia and got married, and then started a family. We're a family of 6 children, 3 boys, 3 girls. I'm the eldest boy. We grew up on a tobacco farm with all our relatives. So we were sort of in Little Italy in the Victorian Alps.
I get it.
And my parents were approached by the Jehovah's Witnesses, changed from the Catholic religion. They baptized me in '65 as a Jehovah's Witness, but then grew me up as they baptized me as a little boy and then grew me up as a Jehovah's Witness. Right. I rejected this in my teen years and then came back in my later teens because I was on a truth-seeking mission. I wanted to know the truth. And so I started in that particular organisation and spent 22 years, became disillusioned in 2005, and then all the awakening occurred thereafter.
Santos, I got to interrupt. That's amazing. So until 2005, you were part of what's affectionately known as the JWs.
Yeah.
I have a good friend, a very close friend. We do ayahuasca adventures in the Amazon where we go and do ceremonies with some native shamans. And him and his wife at the time came out of the Jehovah's Witnesses, and within a year and a half, so you can appreciate this, and they'd grown up within it their whole life, families, generationally. Within a year and a half, they were down in the jungle doing ayahuasca with us, coming completely out of that system.
Hallelujah.
And so I know a little bit about it because I've sort of been working with him for quite a while, and through the years. So that's huge. That's a huge awakening. I understand. Yeah.
Oh, it is. And I'm glad I took that journey because people ask me, why would you be a Jehovah's Witness? Look at you now. And I'd say, well, I've always wanted to know and make a difference and help other people with that knowledge. So I did believe that I was in the true path. Now, that's the thing. I believed.
Right. I
didn't know. Now I know. There's a great difference between believing and knowing. opinions and direct knowledge.
That's such a great point, because sometimes the ego mind, in my view, when I work with people and through my work as well, will say, well, that's just your particular perspective or view. But there is a spiritual physics. There is, like often what I say to people is, you can say there's no sun. You believe there's no sun. It's still going to come up tomorrow. It doesn't depend on your belief or your opinion about that. And there is something that's actually happening. And we can say it's all illusion, ultimately perhaps. But sometimes the ego mind, in my view, will say, well, that's just your opinion, as a way of avoiding having to reflect and actually see what is actual there.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's the truth of reality as compared to the truth of appearances. The truth of appearances are what appear in the solar plexus, the lower mind. And the world is trapped. The world, the herd, as Parmenides, the great philosopher, said, I looked upon the herd, the sheeple. These people have been steered into a way of thinking. Yeah.
Good word. Santos, I play with words.
Elite.
Steered, steers, cattle. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, pardon the pun.
Right on.
I don't know how the cows are going to be steered.
Yeah, all right.
But anyway, the thing is, they are thinking out of their lower mind, the animalistic mind. They have not passed the heart chakra, and they haven't observed any spiritual way of thinking or metaphysical. You see, Plato spoke about the four minds, the four places where we can have our mind. The Hylic, Hylic is a Gnostic designation. I'll use the Gnostic one first, okay? The Gnostics said that there were Hylic people, then there were psychic people, then spiritual, then mystical. The four levels. The Jews have a similar system. They have Pradesh, Remez, Drash, and Sud in Kabbalah. See, the elites are so ahead of us that they know about this, and they know how important it is. Rome has always known, to divide and conquer, you must keep people in their lower mind and train them and drill them so much that they see the world and think with the herd mind of the solar plexus. And this is the difference between a medium and a clairvoyant. There's 100 mediums to one clairvoyant on this planet. And the mediums use their solar plexus. And they channel their information because they don't know it. So they need another entity. Now, I'm not saying that this is wrong, by the way. I'm not saying that this is bad. A lot of good information comes from this source because that is one source of getting information. But the clairvoyant, on the other hand, is superior because he has his head full of knowledge, direct knowledge. He knows.
And Santos, we are on the same page. I've got a video on YouTube where it's called Channeling is Over, where I talk about this exact subject, how we used to, when this knowledge was first coming to us, we had to place it away from ourselves, as in channeling other entities. But the merging that's happening, in my view as well, is that now we're re-accepting those aspects of ourselves, and really they are to be melded and merged back into us, instead of us saying, oh, I could not have that level of understanding myself, therefore I need to create. Or often it is, I actually feel pieces of that same soul that's talking to themselves from another space and time. How do you feel about that?
Oh, well said. Well said. Yeah. Now, to understand this, you have to have reached what the occult scientists call heaven. That is the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, and the optic thalamus, the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. You need to reach that. Now, if you've done that through entheogens or psychedelics, hallucinogens, well and good. Many people avoid that path, and they don't think that it is useful, but it is. And so they meditate and they use other practices, but yes, the most important thing is to do it. We need to do this. Is part of our nature. It's our spiritual nature. If we do not awaken this, well, then the fulfillment of the prophecy of the Gospels, where Jesus said, "The dead shall rise," that will not take place. The dead are we. We are the dead.
I was just going to say, we're the dead,
Yes.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
the resurrection of the dead is a spiritual resurrection. You know, people think Christians are taught in church to believe that they will die and then their bodies will be resurrected, and they go to a physical address, a postal address where heaven is. And they're going to be taken there, you see. Well, heaven is wherever you want it to be. Heaven is within.
Yes.
That means the kingdom of God is within.
Yeah.
That's what it means. It's not out there. There's no postal address where you knock on heaven's door and all of a sudden, oh, is this where it is? Well, what a lovely place. No, heaven is, you see, people who live in hell on this planet are in the fear mode. They've bought into the fear.
Mm-hmm.
And so whereas we have chosen to live in the love mode, and that is where our spiritual nature lies. We are all that ever was and all that is and all that ever will be. And there's only one way of understanding our divinity and resurrecting the Christ within, and that is by driving that beautiful force up the spine and to the heavens, into the cranium where those chakras are waiting to be activated. You see, we've been given a job to do down here, just like Hercules. He has his 12 labours. We must perform those 12 labours. And we must activate the 7 powers that were given to us in our descent onto this planet to incarnation. Through the 7 spheres of Saturn, Jupiter, Venus, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, the Moon, and then down onto the Earth. Those beautiful planets, the archangels, have bestowed vestments, spiritual powers that we are to activate.
Mm-hmm.
And as we activate those, we turn those 7 vices into 7 virtues, and we climb back up Jacob's ladder and go back to the place where we came from.
Let me ask you this, Santos. You said, I liked what you said about the Holy Trinity. Describe the glands that correspond to the Holy Trinity again, if you would.
Yes, in the holy science, in the Kabbalistic Adam Kadmon, man, as above part of the science, is the zodiac belt and the deacons, the 36, the 3 connecting extrazodiacal signs. And those are laid out in the body below the human physical being. And so when you go to the head and you find the temple of the Most Holy, you see every cathedral and every temple, even Solomon's temple, was built according to the human body. When you stand up with your feet together and your arms outstretched horizontally, you are in the shape of a cross. And the heaven part of that cross, the place where the high priest would officiate, is in the head. Just like the temple, the Egyptian temple of Seti in Luxor. The holies is upstairs with the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, and the optic thalamus. They make up this special place in the body.
How far apart are the sometimes people get those confused, the pineal and the pituitary. So the pineal is a little higher up in the brain, is that right? You didn't know there'd be a biology test.
Well, this is the trick. This is the trick because yes, some people place it there, and then other people place the crown chakra there, and the third eye on the 6th level. Right. But once you're up there and you've activated the pineal gland, I mean, they all activate. The lights turn on together. But once you pass the throat chakra and you're into that sacred place.
I see chambers as you talk, and I hear the word domain. Yeah. So go ahead.
Well, this is it. I'm just about to read from Manly P. Hall,
Okay.
the occult anatomy of man and occult masonry. And he says, in the middle of the brain, and surrounded by the convolutions is the third ventricle, a vaulted chamber of initiation.
Oh.
Around it sit three kings, three great centers of life and power: the pituitary body, the pineal gland, and the optic thalamus. In this chamber also is a small gritty seed which is undoubtedly connected with the king's coffer in the Great Pyramid. The third ventricle is supposed to be the seat of the soul, and the aura radiating from the heads of saints and sages is said to represent the God pouring from this third ventricle. So now, when you go to the man above, Adam Kadmon in the sky, you always begin with the sign of Aries. Everything starts with Aries because Aries is in our head, and it occupies the top of the head. And then the next sign is Taurus, which occupies the lower
All right,
part.
Santos. There's the music. Let's come back to that. I still want to do the Holy Trinity, how it connects the glands in our head, and we'll be right back.
Welcome to the world's meeting place. American
It's practically narcotics.
Freedom
Oh, yes, I like very much.
Radio.
You're an American institution.
American Freedom Radio.
Teach your children well. Their fathers have
Classic song.
it slowly go
Beautiful song by Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Teach your children well. And maybe Santos tonight can teach us something about what he knows about this larger picture of our star systems and how our souls connect. We'll take some calls next hour, I wanted to mention. This is Tobias. I'm sitting in for Christy tonight on Truth Brigade. So, Santos, we left off talking about the pineal, pituitary, and maybe the hypothalamus and how they relate to, and you were starting to read from Manly P. Hall, the chambers of awakening in our head, or something like that.
Yeah, these are the three kings, or Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And they are centers of life and power, you see. So, but the purpose of discussing this is that many people in the world have not awakened to this spiritual part of their constitution. You see, they really do believe in materialism. And Darwinian theory basically is what poisons their minds too, you see, because it teaches that we come from this soup, from this material initial beginning, and then these cells just accumulate and everything. We come from this soup, organic soup, and then we go through from the fish onto the land, and then we become, Homo erectus and all of this, and then we acquire these wonderful abilities like to think and emotions and all these other attachments as side effects of this physical blob that has evolved.
Right. And never mind that there's huge gaps, huge missing links all the way along there that make no sense and certainly would have no statistical backing that there would be enough time to actually create that evolution, or changing from an exoskeleton to a skeleton on the inside like that there's nothing that goes in between there where the skeleton is sort of halfway. These things would just simply appear on our planet. I remember as a 19-year-old, Santos, being in pre-med, becoming a biologist for a while, realizing this evolution has got huge gaps and holes in it. And even then, inside the university system, I knew that it wasn't true. So yeah, those huge missing links, like fish to land. There's no half fish, half mammal thing. Obviously, the human missing links. So in my sense, there's this huge information in the empty space, if you will, that sort of a holy wind, you could say it, of consciousness from the center of the galaxy that carries all these patterns within it that then that informs, it's a good word, make forms out of. We turn things into forms by informing the energies where to coalesce, and that creates the particular bodies on different planets. How do you feel about that?
This is why the world is made up of patterns and matter. Patterns comes from pater, father, the spirit, and matter comes from mother, the material world. And so the patterns imprint, have the images, the divine forms, the ideal forms, which imprint themselves on matter. And you see that the Darwinians and these people that we've just exposed, these are people who study effects and not causes. Yeah. So, and this is why I'm going down this path, because you see, the world has been held captive in this world of materialistic thinking, of effects. And they don't understand, humans do not understand that their origins are not from here. We did not evolve from here. Our origins is from the very, very heavens, from the cause itself. We are exquisitely divine and returning to our divinity. That's our destiny. But you see, these buffoons in the churches and the universities will have us believe that it's all material. And then one day, you know, through great hypocritical works, we find that we get ourselves, we go to heaven through a vicarious salvation by some historical dude who comes along and says, I'm here to debunk all the indigenous religions and philosophies that ever have existed, and I've come to give you the only religion in the universe that is true. And this happened 2,000 years ago, Rome tries to tell us. And so, you know, they give you all these impossible things when you're down there in the materialistic lower mind of the solar plexus. And the elites are masters at keeping people there in the realms of opinion. You see, people will jump out of their opinions. They will not let go of them until the day they die.
And you're not saying, Santos, that the solar plexus doesn't have a very important integral role as a chakra, but you're saying it's not meant, we're not meant to be trapped inside that level of consciousness.
That's exactly correct. Exactly. Because you see, when Jesus gets baptized in the Jordan River, this is Shakespeare at its best. It's telling us that we must exceed the heart chakra, because the Jordan River runs from the heart chakra to the to Orion's feet, and it's called the Eridanus in the sky. The Eridanus is the Jordanus. And to be baptized in that river, you have to go past the heart chakra, because it starts in the sign of Leo, which is the heart. It goes all the way to Taurus, because in the constellation of Taurus we have Orion. And at the feet of Orion commences that river, which ends in just near Leo. So it's telling you that we must go there to be baptized. That's the baptism of the Spirit. The baptism of the water is down in the bottom chakras, which are known to the occultists as Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom is the lowest chakra, which is between the anus aperture and the generative organs. That's the lowest chakra. That's Sodom. This is where you get sodomized.
We're speaking truth on Truth Brigade. No, I agree. I've been talking for years about we need to... Don't you feel also the lower chakras they've been the most judged in the current system?
Yeah, look, they are so useful. We need those for our energy, our physical energy. That's where we are rooted in the kingdom of Malkuth, which is opposite to Ketha in the crown chakra.
I want to say something here about, I can feel what you're doing, Santos. I want to say something to everybody. Santos is able to here as in the macro, it becomes in the micro. The macro system across the galaxy gets reflected just in holographic systems. You can take a small piece of something and it will reflect the whole thing. He's now sharing with us how inside, along the River Jordan, and then I would suggest along the River Nile as well, these symbologies are all around us. This system of 7 chakras are often along rivers. Like in Egypt, the different temples would represent different chakras. And I've never heard this before, but now you're explaining that the River Jordan as well has some kind of representative system like this that then also correlates to the stars?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, when you're reading the Gospels, Take note, and you've got to see this. When you read the Gospels, there is a literal rendering, but it's false. In the historical context, it's false. But it's literal for children, like training wheels on a push bike, to teach them who's who. You know, you anthropomorphize the deities. So Jesus, the sun in the sky, becomes a man. Now, when you do this, there's also, the Holy Land is also the physiology of the human being. It's the body of the human being is the Holy Land. Exactly. The Jordan River, as I said, runs from the heart to the pineal gland. That's the Jordan River that we must be baptized in. Now, I'll get back to that later, but there are different systems in the Gospels. There are 7 levels of interpretation. Now, it's pretty much like those 3D images that appear all of a sudden out of a beautiful, complicated painting. You know, those complicated drawings, they say, look, if you look hard and you focus, all of a sudden a 3D, and you jump out of your skin when you first notice these.
Right.
All right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what the Bible's like. The Bible is hiding these amazing allegorical stories that you can only understand if you do your 7 liberal arts. If you know your music and your astronomy and your cosmology and your mathematics and you've done a good groundwork, these will appear in the Bible. Now, the Bible is the best book for this. It's scary. It's absolutely a gem for hiding these allegories and mystical truths that the people who are feeding on the milk of the Word, as the Apostle Paul said, they will never see this. And I know personally people who cannot see those 3-dimensional images. Try as hard as they can, they never ever see them, because they don't have the ability to relax and no, I mean, they just don't have it, and it's a shame, because this is how we must read the Scriptures. But people who are opinionated and indoctrinated by the churches and the priests, the very powerful priests who are fools, that they are simply the blind leading the blind. They can't see these things because, as the Bible says, Satan has blinded the minds of the unbelievers. That's applying to them. They are the unbelievers because they have to go to someone else to have them spew forth their lies for them to believe in. That's the herd mentality.
Right, absolutely. And we know, and I want to suggest, I guess got a suggestion for people, and the lovely thing here is you're coming from Rome. You're an Italian from Rome, and you guys have translated. I can feel your soul, that you're part of you chose very carefully how and when to be incarnated, like we all do, I would suggest. And you're undoing this Roman thing, sort of. You've mentioned it several times, which is, I find yeah.
Look, this is exactly where I'm coming, Tobias. I'm so glad you seem to understand exactly what I'm saying and where I'm coming from always. My hat's off to you. This is great to be able to be interviewed by yourself. This is beautiful.
Oh, it's nice to say.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, what was the you did say?
The Roman, you're undoing that which you did perhaps in some other lifetimes. Now I'm looking at your chart, but that's okay. I'm kidding. I'm teasing you.
This is the point I wanted to make, and it's great. I want people to understand that my line of teaching and thinking is not original. I'm not sharing anything new, anything. The only new thing that I bring to the table is to be able to syncretize all the philosophies by means of the sine wave that is the key to understanding all theologies and all mythologies and all nursery rhymes and fairy tales. That's the only thing I bring to the table. Apart from that, I'm standing on the shoulders of the great Hermetic Prisca Theologia lineage. Now, the Prisca Theologia, the ancient theology, is a very, very perfect and divine science which encompasses all the sciences, but at the top sits the mother of all sciences, astrology. She's the queen. She's the one that all the other sciences must bow down to and pay homage, for they will never understand anything unless they understand the science of astrology.
And you mean true astrology?
True astrology, which I teach. Yeah. I don't go deep in my astrology at all. It's all kindergarten, basic, fundamental stuff, just so that people can then go off, and I give people the fishing tools. I don't give them fish. Mm-hmm. They are astrologers. Once you understand that science. Now, the Prisca Theologia comes from Hermes, and it runs down a very, very beautiful, wonderful line of geniuses and saints and great philosophers. And I'll give you this line, and it comes straight down to you and I, Tobias. We are the inheritors of this line. It begins with Hermes. Everything begins with Hermes. He is the teacher of the world. He, with Pymander, the mind of God, revealed all of the Prisca Theologia to mankind. And Orpheus is his direct successor, then Pythagoras, Agliathemus, Philolaus, and the divine Plato.
Explain to people, Santos, who Hermes is.
Well, Hermes is Thoth. Thoth is thought. Mm-hmm. Thought is mind. Logos. You see, when you read about Jesus, they define him as the Logos. Yeah, of course, because it's Hermes. It's not a Jewish or a Galilean or a Nazarite historical person.
How do you tie that into Thoth the Atlantean?
Well, that's who it is. Hermes is Thoth. He is Enoch. He is Moses. He is Nebo. He is Mercury, Mercurius. And Mercurius is...
Beautiful. Santos has so much knowledge about this. I am very turned on by it and understand it. And we're going to try to help everybody else understand it too. We'll be back in a little bit with more about this lineage coming down from Thoth Hermes. Christy, who's normally the host here, I'm Tobias, substituting on Fridays for her. Christy, if you're listening, that's a real Doobie Brothers song. I'm kidding you. So thanks, Adam, for the graceful flow in between spaces. Adam, our engineer, it's wonderful to have him around. So, Santos, we were just leaving off on the lineage of the true priesthood started with Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus, and you were talking about how that was going down the line. And tell us why you're telling us that and what it represents.
Yeah, well, the reason I'm talking about this is so that people know where I'm coming from. I'm based primarily in this school of thinking. It's Western. It's not Eastern, although I do bring in a lot of Eastern stuff. Okay, I bring everything in, but for people to understand where I am mostly coming from, you must understand this lineage. Plato then was the last of that particular six in what the Renaissance master called the six great ones. You know, the ones who gave us the Prisca Theologia. Then came the wonderful Neoplatonists, Plutarch. You can throw Plutarch in there in the 1st century. He is one that I have researched a lot and love. Then there was, of course, the great Ammonius Saccas, the Neoplatonist, Plotinus, Porphyry, Iamblichus, and you can go all the way through. There's Boethius. Hypatia was one of these. All the way to the transcendentalists like Ralph Waldo Emerson, who loved Plato. All the way through to Alvin Boyd Kuhn and Manly P. Hall, and all the way to us. Okay?
Beautiful.
Yeah,
and I got to hit on that, Santos, about we often in the West have been so emasculated and defeminized and cut off from our own tradition that we think that it's all in Tibet, in India, or even in native cultures. We've forgotten about our own Western true lineage mysticism, and you just reminded me of that.
Yeah, this is it. Okay, now when Marsilio Ficino, Cosimo de Medici's philosopher and teacher and instructor, he was under the I forget the word now, but Cosimo was his benefactor. Anyway, in Florence, and these were the guys that were responsible for the Renaissance. Mm-hmm. What happened was books came from the East, from the Islamists, and they brought Hermes over to Cosimo de' Medici, and he immediately gave these to Marsilio Ficino, and he said, please translate the Corpus Hermeticum, all the books, the Poemander, etc. And he was currently, at the time, it was at the late 1400s, he was translating all of Plato's works, but he put those on hold and finished and completed the Corpus Hermeticum. That is what caused the flowering and the rebirth of the ancient Egyptian spiritual wisdom called the Renaissance. Mm-hmm. Not Christianity, not the Bible. And that is what caused the founding fathers of America to establish a republic, a constitutional republic based on Hermes. Mm-hmm. You see, the false informers these days are very, very busy trying to tell us that Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Paine and Thomas Jefferson and Monroe and all these guys were George Washington, they were all demonic Freemasons that were out to enslave us with the Constitution. No. This happened later on with the founding of the Corporation of the United States. Mm-hmm. The United States is based on democracy. Mm-hmm. It's a corporation. Mm-hmm. The United States of America, that is a republic, and that's based on Hermes. Mm. The democracy buffoons, the rule by mob people, they are your Christians, your Baptists, your Puritans, the persecutors of the Hermetists. You see, America was founded on Hermes.
It's interesting, those statues of seeing George Washington in the depiction of an old Greek god or Roman god sometimes as well. And that's such a great distinction, Santos. And I was going to say to people listening, if you can place your intention on, go back to the original founding fathers' idea of a republic and true freedom, and even if you feel hopeless in today's situation with the increasing control and financial stuff, you can place your attention and say to the universe, to God, the Spirit, however you conceive of that, I want that ideal, that original ideal for America. I don't know how the details are going to play out, but you adding your intention to that is one of the best things you can do, because the universe listens to your intention. Sometimes that's even better than marching, and most of the time, than marching in the streets with placards. It's my opinion. So everybody listening, you can say, I want what those original founding fathers wanted, that Santos is describing for us, this original freedom, and that it actually came from farther back than the Greeks. It came from this Atlantean master that traveled and have helped found the original Egyptian mysteries, Thoth. So it's not evil, it's not wrong, and then you have the religionists trying to hijack this original idea of true liberty, true equality, true personhood for individuals. I just wanted to say that, but go ahead.
Yeah, look, very good point. Beautiful. Well said, and so true. We do have a republic still, if we can keep it, like Benjamin Franklin said. Mm-hmm. If you can keep it. Because he knew that the Catholics and the Calvinists, the Puritans, they were coming with their money, their Federal Reserve money, and their democracy and their Christian, so-called Christian religions, which are divide and conquer. Now, going back to Marsilio Ficino, he was the one that revealed to the world the antiquity of Hermes, the Corpus Hermeticum. He was the one, and he taught us that they developed a Prisca Theologia, the holy science in the West, And, you know, yes, we do have great Eastern wisdom, but the Western wisdom is the original, the one and only original. The Easterns, it was exported to the East and then brought back with the Brahmins, you know, and the Abraham religion. It was brought back from India. But another link in the chain there is the French occultists of the 18th and 19th century. That's another link. They also belong in this. And these are guys like Thomas H. Burgoyne and Pappas and all of these guys who had direct knowledge because they'd interpreted and translated the Rosetta Stone, Champollion and Napoleon's men, and they then were able to understand all of a sudden the hieroglyphs. And now we know it's incontrovertible that Egypt is the origin of all the schools, every single one of them, Christianity included, comes from Egypt. Judaism comes from Egypt. They all come from these. And these French guys, in particular, there was one in there with a contemporary of Napoleon, that was Dupuy. Dupuy wrote a fabulous book, which I've read, on the origins of all religions, and so did Volney. Volney was one who travelled to America and taught Thomas Paine and Thomas Jefferson and all these guys about deism. He was the one that taught them about the mythology. They understood now that the Bible was based on the sun. The sun is Jesus, and the 12 apostles are the 12 signs of the zodiac. And when you understand this and see this, then all of a sudden that 3D image of the Bible pops out, and it's scary at first when you first realise this. I only realised it 3 years ago. 3 or 4 years ago when I watched... well, I'd started realising it. You know, I started figuring that Esther and Mordecai must be a start. You know, I started making these connections. And then
wait, you cut out a little bit. Esther and Mordecai are stars?
Yes, they are Astarte and Marduk of the Babylonians.
Yeah.
And I started working this out myself without the aid of anything. But the moment I watched the movie, the documentary Zeitgeist, that's the moment that everything started coming together. So my stuff is only really just, you know, of recent times that I've put all these together, but I had a good foundation because I've always been an astronomer, and I've read the Bible as a Jehovah's Witness. I read that and studied that so thoroughly. That's
such a good image, Santos. Those pictures we used to look at that pop into 3D. So instead of throwing the baby out with the bathwater here, a lot of people that I know are raised inside Christianity, and they get so sick of it, they dump the whole thing. And I want to come back to that and talk about how if we can listen with a new way of hearing it, we can start seeing the deeper subject pop out of it for us here. We'll be right back. Truth Brigade here. I'm Tobias, sitting in for Christy, and we're speaking with Santos Bonacci from Melbourne, Australia. And Santos, I know there's such a wealth of knowledge and this beautiful synthesis you've done of the Western mysticism or the true mystery schools. Where can people get in depth with your information? On YouTube or a website, somewhere where they can delve into what even though we're going to do 2 hours tonight, we're really going to just be able to touch the tip of the iceberg. Where can they find you and get your information?
I have a website called universaltruthschool.com.
Okay.
And I have a YouTube site which is called Mr. Astrotheology.
Mr. Astrotheology. All right. I recommend it. And the wealth of information that Santos has here, it turns me on, but I'm a cosmic nerd, too. It's really a beautiful science. But I don't want anyone to feel intimidated either. You don't have to know all these historical characters that Santos is sharing with us. But I wanted to suggest when you are people who are still studying the Bible, the way you look at those, as Santos brought up, those old pictures where you can get a 3D hologram happening, do the same thing with the Bible. We have eyes and ears. Spend some time reading and feeling and seeing, and then just listening. Show me the bigger picture. Santos has the gift to share with us all tonight that there's a deeper symbology. The Jordan River is your spinal column. There's chakras involved. The Holy Land is the human body. These type of things, fairy tales, dreams. This is the same thing with dream interpretation. So don't be intimidated if you don't know all these names and understand and think you have to learn all that. You do not. What you have to do is just relax, because you have all that Holy Land within you. Whether you're coming from the place like our beautiful engineer Adam keeping us entertained in between with raps, that's just as holy as a linear history of from Thoth on down. So I just want to suggest, don't be intimidated by it. But if you're turned on by this, this guy is the best in many decades, lifetimes I've come across, that's able to put all this into an understandable perspective where we're bringing it all together, all the way from the ancient foundations of Thoth and Hermes in Egypt. And I wanted to say also, Santos, obviously, everything came from Egypt. Moses was a high Egyptian priest, and then he started that religion, and the Christianity and Islam came out of that. It's so obvious. Egypt is the source, the beginning source of this stuff. I would suggest also Atlantis before that, but that's sometimes some people don't believe that. But anyway, I just wanted to say that, and then I'll let you pick up where you want right now, Santos.
Yeah, look, that's a good point. And I might like to add to that yes, the Moses religion and the Islamic comes from these places. They do come from Egypt, but their source is different. You see, those priests, they foresaw a time when people would not understand the religion, the science/religion, the Prisca Theologia. So they did a wise thing. The science in allegory.
Yes.
They hid the truths in many levels. They encoded these documents with wonderful messages, not backwards and upside down and all that sort of stuff. Not necessarily anyway, but just in the stories that they tell. I mean, you can break this right down to each Hebrew letter, and it has a meaning, and it has a story, and it's telling, different things. That you can do that too. But what I'm saying is, when you read the scriptures, the stories, you should be able to just read them like poems, just like Shakespeare, and you should be able to see 7 levels by just reading them and watching those stories.
7 levels. There are 7.
Yeah. Now, what's happened is they did that. As we decline in consciousness from the Golden Age through the Silver, through the Bronze, into the Iron Age, which was foretold, and they foresaw it, and they warned that we would be in dire straits. They warned that it would be a time when we would be suffering so much through loss of consciousness because of just passing through the 2,000-odd years of the age of iron, which is Rome. Now, what they did is they knew that the masses of mankind would not understand the holy writings, the hieroglyphs. They would not understand them, so they had to dress them up in order to preserve them. And what would happen was a time would come when people would put their literal faith and belief in those words and the literal rendering of them, and they would cause themselves many pain and enslavement by doing so. But it was necessary, because the cycle is a cycle of necessity. It is necessary that we go through winter to get to summer. it is necessary that we go through the darkness to get to the light every day.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a cycle. And the cycle continues to give us the good and the bad. And so the processional cycle of 24,000 years gives us the good and the bad. We've just come out of the bad. And now we are looking at these hieroglyphs and these scriptures and myths and legends, and we're starting to understand them. We're
Mm-hmm.
starting to see the 3D images pop out. They're jumping out. And thanks to people who have always been there, like Leonardo da Vinci, he exposed this, Marsilio Ficino, Giovanni Pico della Mirandola, Giordano Bruno, even in recent times, Alvin Boyd Kuhn. We have people like Jordan Maxwell and Michael Tsarian out there.
Mm-hmm.
Acharya S. She's a great scholar, and she's put out so much literature that I have leaned upon. I've learnt so much from her work.
Mm-hmm.
But Manly P. Hall, I mean, you can get audio files of Manly P. Hall dealing with astrotheology. There are 5 of these. You can get them on the internet and download them and listen to them, and you will be in ecstasy just listening to this beautiful man as he speaks about the stars above and how they relate to the stars below, the stars that we are.
One way I've done it, Santos, and see how you feel about it, is I try to people that Moses was a high priest initiate in Egypt. Obviously went through the initiation in the chamber and the pyramid and whatever all that entailed. And then the Hebrews at the time, who have been enslaved and probably illiterate, many of them, are then being taken out of Egypt, and Moses has to translate these high teachings into a form that will be able to be kept by the Hebrews, even though there's no way he can initiate them all into these high mysteries. And he basically writes the Torah in those first 5 books, the Pentateuch. And I relate it to, if you have been, cut off from your family for 10 generations, and then you are not allowed to read, and then someone's going to come and teach you higher calculus, they're going to have to simplify it for you. How do you feel about that way of explaining it?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And this is what Moses represents. Whether he had good intentions with his encoding of the Pentateuch and all of those so-called, well, they're attributed to Moses, but Moses is Hermes, you see. Mm-hmm. That's what Marsilio Ficino said anyway. He said, this Moses, the Jews talk about, it's none other than Hermes.
Himself. Interesting.
Yeah, so, Moses is easy to identify, right?
Mm-hmm.
Moses has 2 tablets, does he not?
Yeah.
Well, so
that's
does
the
Mercury.
scribe. Yeah, it's the scribe.
Yeah. So does Mercury, or Thoth.
Thoth, yeah.
Or Hermes. They have 2 tablets. They always do. And they are the 2 tablets, the 2 wings that come up out of the caduceus. Mercury always holds the caduceus, and he holds the stylus. He's the writer. Because, you see, Mercury is the closest planet to the sun. It is the first one to receive the photons. That's why Mercury is the first one to send forth his light. The reflective light. He's the first one. And that represents the light of intellect. He is the intellect principle of the solar system.
And a translator and a transducer.
Everything. Mercury is it. Mercury is our left brain, the feminine side. You see, Mercury, Hermes and Aphrodite. He's not just Hermes. He's Hermaphrodite. Mercury is the only planet in the solar system that is bisexual. Jupiter's a boy, Zeus. Saturn is a boy, old man Kronos, father time. Very angry, very righteous. Yeah. Venus is a girl, the moon is a girl, Earth, Gaia is a girl, Mars, well, he's a boy, the sun's a boy, but Mercury
is both.
Yeah.
Wow, and that's interesting.
Well, that's what the Ammon-Isis depiction of Leonardo da Vinci is all about. You see, the Mona Lisa is the Ammon-Isis.
Ah, interesting.
Ammon is the boy and Isis is the girl. It's the hermaphrodite. So we're going back to our left, excuse me, I said left brain.
Yeah, right brain.
Wow, excuse me. It's the right brain. Hermes rules the brain. It's feminine. It's the sixth sense, or the 360 senses. We are activating those right now. We have come from the left brain, the male brain ruled by Mars, and the martial, and by the way, this is what's going on in the two hemispheres, the left brain and the right brain. That's Cain killing Abel.
Yeah,
Cain is the left brain, the boy, and he kills Abel. Abel is the right brain. And it has been...
Now, let me just pause for it. Feel that, everybody. The story we've been told, this is such a perfect example of what Santos is talking about, that these surface stories of Cain killing Abel, that in the Western world, we practically all of us, everybody's heard about that, especially if you were any kind of went to church, that he's just explained to us the deeper significance of that. And that's what he's teaching us today, that all the, whether it's a fairy tale, the history of Egypt, the Bible, the Shakespeare, you know, all these writings and the Renaissance, all of it has deeper symbolic 3D pop-out significance understanding. So this materialist, controlling, linear, Cartesian, you know, Darwinian system is when Cain kills Abel. He kills off the feminine input. He kills off Mercury, where the feminine, or it becomes imbalanced. The male starts dominating the feminine. Am I getting that right?
That's the one. You said it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's how it is.
So it's a perfect example of how that story is not just two brothers fighting. It is actually would be then the left brain, which controls the right, and is killing off our intuitive side, our right brain, which controls our left side of the body, which is the intuitive feeling, the creative side, so forth. I always find this interesting. I'm left-handed, Santos, and I find it in our current dominant paradigm, we have whatever it is, 93% of people are born right-handed. I always thought in a balanced universe where the right and the left brains would be balanced, people would be, first of all, ambidextrous, or at least we'd have an equal amount of people being left-handed as right-handed, but we don't, and that's a symptom of this domination of Cain killing the Abel, killing that which actually makes us able to function balancedly.
Yep. And this is represented in the brain by the sign of Taurus. See, remember I said Aries and Taurus is in the head?
Okay.
Well, Taurus has Orion. Orion is killing the bull. He's killing the bull. Take note that this is happening in the head, because Orion killing the bull is Orion killing a bull.
Mm-hmm.
Abel. That's Cain killing Abel.
Okay. I got it.
Exactly. Look, Taurus is always been associated with Abel. And Orion, standing next door, is Cain killing Abel. This is happening in our heads. It is.
And therefore...
the left brain, the male... brutalizing the right brain, which has feminine qualities. This is why our theocratic religions are very against the woman, the female energy. They are very against it because of this tragic trauma that we've gone through in the last, say, few thousand years, by having us polarized in our left brain.
Yes. I also saw the bull sacrifice. The Romans were very much into sacrificing bulls. And then that sacrifice became actual sacrifices of red heifers for the Jews. There's still a sect inside Judaism that's looking for the perfect red heifer to start back up. It's like a last gasp of that old system. So that actually translated then from the stars in a sense. I would suggest, do you feel there's also a war in the heavens that is then reflected on the earth? So this is actually occurring in the heavens as well, this domination of principles across the galaxy, or do you delve into that?
Well, absolutely, yes. What is above is as above, so below. What we are going through, so is the solar system. Yeah. The solar system is going through the same trauma that we are experiencing here on Earth, with wars and famines and economic hardships and all sorts of foreclosures, and just it's this disgusting the world that the elites have produced through their think tanks,
Yes.
Bilderbergers, etc. And this is the world, and because they also are controlled by dark forces, the dark forces of this solar system. This solar system also has its chakras, and some of those chakras are animalistic. The Earth has 7 chakras. One of its chakras is animalistic. It's the animal soul. And depending on its position, whether it's at apohelion or perihelion, we suffer the effects of having animal spirit influences controlling us, especially the elites. The elites have been controlled by fourth-dimensional animals.
Interesting. The elites are being controlled by fourth-dimensional beasts or animals, Santos says. Let's pick it up on that when we come back. And if you want to call in and talk to Santos, I'll give the number out as we come back from the break. All right. On Truth Brigade, won't you take us back to school? I need to learn the golden rule there by the Moody's. Absolutely, and Santos is taking us back to real school, real old school, of truly how all this started for us in the Western tradition from Thoth and on down. And we left off, instead of worshiping the golden calf, the golden bull, right now, Wall Street, which is coming up collectively for all of us. How about we learn the golden rule? And that's what we're looking back at here. So we left off where Santos left us with a very intriguing comment that most of the elites on the planet today are actually ruled by fourth-dimensional animals, he said. I added the beast part because I think that's such an archetype. So let's pick it up there if you want to, Santos.
Yeah, this is explained in the book The Light of Egypt, Volume 1 by Thomas H. Burgoyne. In there, he has a chapter devoted to the subject of the dark satellite. And the dark satellite, according to occult science and wisdom, is the animal chakra of the Earth. And it has been at perihelion for 2,000 years.
And perihelion means on top, ascendant?
You broke up. I didn't hear you.
Yeah, perihelion means at maximum effect. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah. It's perigee.
Right.
When dealing with the sun, you don't use the word perigee. You use perihelion because helion is the sun.
Right.
But it means perigee, just like you say, exactly. And apogee, perigee, apogee. So perihelion, apohelion. Now, he explains in this book that the dark orb in question has receded since 1881. It's been receding. So what is happening is it's still around because it's trying to prolong its existence. It's trying to feed off the fear of humanity through the elites. And because it can control humanity and it can feed the animal spirits in this chart, who are mostly made up of humans who when they die, their souls seeking to go upwards are bounced back into this chakra, this animal chakra, because they haven't cut the grade to ascend. This is why it's so important that people understand this science. Because, yes, you can fail to ascend. You can fail, and you have to continue to go through experiences in the flesh, which is called what we call reincarnation.
Yeah.
And so our idea to liberate ourselves, the idea would be to free ourselves and to transmute the lead into gold, spiritually speaking, and to ascend and go into the higher realms of living, the invisible realms of living rather than fleshly. This is our destiny. We must return. We must return whence we came. We can't stay here in the flesh and suffer all the time. This is not part of the deal that we made.
That's why I call it reincarnation, like, you know, carne. Anyway, in America, carne is, you know, there's a lot of Mexican food here, so carne basically means meat in America. So reincarnation is what I call it. Do you think the fact that we kill 35 million cattle in you know, in America every year, is this related? No, how is that related to this? And this dark energy, it had been receding since when? This animal throne, if you will.
Yes, the dark satellite is since 1881. It's been receding, so very soon we will not feel its influence anymore.
Yeah. And does this directly relate to it feeds off of killing all the actual cattle as well, or?
Oh, there's a relationship there for sure. Yeah. I probably won't need to go into it, but there's a strong relationship with that. Absolutely. The reason why we have been indoctrinated to eat meat because it's good for you is because it's a big and very easy industry to run. You can make a lot of money killing animals, murdering them, and offering them to human beings to eat. Really, if you read Plato and Porphyry, and Pythagoras and Plutarch, Ovid, Seneca, any of those great wise wisdom keepers, they all denounce the eating of meat and the killing of animals, the killing of souls to sustain oneself. Porphyry has some beautiful words where he says the animal that's screaming for its life when you put a cold steel throat is not screaming because it's enjoying what it's about to experience. It's telling you, why? Why do you need to eat meat? Me, you fool. There's vegetables, there's fruits, there's all these other beautiful animals. I don't begrudge you your eating. I do begrudge you, however, your better eating. Because the eating of the flesh is what Plutarch called the tyranny of the senses. You see, we've become so lustful in our desires that we are happy to slaughter an animal, to cook it and and torture that meat and to put it into our stomachs and absolutely cannot benefit us in any way to eat meat because we can't get the protein or the iron. Our body doesn't know how to do it. It sits in the stomach sits in the intestinal alimentary tract for 7 days, toxifies, and just puts poisonous, radioactive free radicals into your body. It's just poison.
Santos pulling no punches tonight, calling the elite fourth-dimensional beasts and telling us what eating meat really does. And I have to agree with him. And also, that is the truth. We're speaking idealistically. Now, there's a process sometimes to unaddict yourself if you've been addicted to eating meat, but just let your body tell you that natural process. Don't immediately jump and think that you can be a breatharian and live off simply prana and energy immediately if you've been used to eating whale blubber. It's not going to work. You're going to need a couple of steps in between. But, yeah. So tell us how the elite are controlled by these four-dimensional beasts, if you will.
They're controlled in that these beasts control them through the solar plexus, through the lower mind. See, the fear that they are in. You see, the elites, they are not free of trauma. They've all been brainwashed, and the mind control. The mind control is more powerful on them. Their families. Yeah. You know, your let's go Rockefeller, Rothschilds, Rodhams, the Clintons, the Bushes. These families, they are not without trauma. They are killers. These families are killers.
Naming names.
Yeah, that's what they do. They kill. That's their business. George Bush is a killer. We're going to go to Iraq to bring democracy. Democracy is mob rule. You're the mob. You're the corporation. You're the killer, George Bush. That's who the killer is.
Telling it like it is. And again, I would remind people, democracy, like Benjamin Franklin said, is a tyranny of the mob. It's not freedom. Democracy.
And look, he's supported by a lot of other corporations called Christianity. You know, the Mormons, registered church. Jehovah's Witnesses, registered church. They're corporations. Yep. They're all corporations, and they're all under the mother corporation, which is the Vatican, and they all obey the will of the Vatican. They preach the same rubbish. They indoctrinate people with poison, keep them in the lower mind, and then this is how they are controlled through the lower mind and the solar plexus. Wow. Now, these families, I mean, please don't think that any of these families, you know, had a great upbringing like is portrayed in the media. They've been tortured with mind control. Simple as that. Mm. And that's how they do the evil things that they do. That's why they are abusive, because they were abused. Yeah. All the elites, they're all families of killers. They're pirates. They are pirates of the high sea. Yeah. And they get their killing instinct from the dark satellite, which they are attached to magnetically, as explained by Thomas H. Burgoyne. It is a magnetic cord. And they cause these elites to do killing, to cause wars and perpetrate all sorts of divisions among mankind, so that these animals in the fourth dimensional aspect of our solar system, they are feeding off of this fear. They need the fear. They cannot. They will cease to exist. They will wither without it.
The fear is their food, literally, energetically, correct?
Absolutely. And the more we have rapport with them, the more we interact with their foolish, stupid corporations. You know, the more, I mean, why do people line up at Starbucks and McDonald's? I do not know. Are these the most stupid imbeciles? I mean, it's easy. It's a person who walks into a McDonald's to get a hamburger. That is an imbecile, because he's an idiot. That's a person who does not know what poison he is introducing to his holy temple of God, the body. These are poisons by the elites. They have manufactured, trust me, Kentucky Fried Chicken's secret, the secret why he doesn't want to tell you what spices he's putting in there is because he is putting DNA-altering poisons in there for fools who go and eat that food. These are fools, absolute imbeciles. They've got no understanding about nutrition, and they will have suffer the consequences: obesity, mind diseases, all sorts of emphysema, and all sorts of mental and putrid rubbish. And this is because people don't do their education, do their studying.
Yes. Santos telling truth directly and strongly tonight. And again, this is not a conspiracy that is conscious. This is the thing where people get caught. You can't say that Colonel Sanders of Kentucky Fried Chicken consciously. No, it's the damage that's done to us. It is the same thing as when someone abuses their children or abuses a woman because they saw their family do it. It gets inculcated, imprinted in the subconscious, in the energy imprints of that soul, in that consciousness, and then it automatically perpetuates itself like a virus. So this is not a conscious conspiracy. Very few people are conscious of it. This is what Santos is pointing out. It is done horribly to those young children. They do it to their own children because it was done to them. And therefore it perpetuates itself, and breaking the cycle, the planetary pirates, you call them, I like that, but to break this cycle of abuse, really, to the planet, to us, to animals, you can step up individually and reawaken yourself out of literally that matrix. You know, we're being programmed, whether it's television or the food we eat, and you need to unplug from it. And that's what we're encouraging us all to do. That's about the real awakening. So it's not that these people often are consciously evil, or they're not conscious of these things, Just like the government can be run, like David Icke says, by a few people, and then the rest people are just simply following orders, you know. So, and it's the same thing on the planetary thing. There's no conscious conspiracy by people that have good hearts and are trying to do work at McDonald's or something, but the whole system underneath it is serving this draining of energy, perpetuating fear, shutting down your chakras, shutting down your energetic body. So I just wanted to interject that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So these beings that run the elites themselves, see if you can have some compassion. When I've had true masters come to me, they've often, when we were doing a group seminar one time a few years ago, and when we could hit the forgiveness space where we could actually have understanding and sort of love for what we call the global Illuminati, these masters, these beings got very excited because that's the lubrication, the forgiveness. Santos is speaking very strongly, pointing out what is. That's the awakening. You have to go through the dark night of the soul and see what is. Otherwise, you are blindly controllable because that stuff's imprinted into you. That's terrifying. It's hurtful to realize that daddy is not a loving daddy. The system does not have your best interest at heart. But when we could actually get to that place of understanding almost compassionately that George Bush's Illuminati, so forth, they have themselves been traumatized to that level. Otherwise, they could not be willing or be automaton robots to be willing to traumatize other beings. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. We have to. There's no other way. There's no other way because these people are eventually going to find their way back. They have to. All things will be recollected back to the cause, to the Creator. All things. Beautiful. All of his creations, none shall be lost. But it's important that we understand, you know, what it is that they are doing. At this moment, they have chosen to do evil. That's their choice. Yeah. And we have to know that. And we have to know how to react to this. Rather than interacting with them how they want us to, we need to change what we do by accepting our divinity and waking up, knowing.
And we'll come back with that, and we'll pick it up on how we can reconnect to our divinity to take away the fear food that feeds this old paradigm. We'll be right back. That off a little early. Back on Truth Brigade here. This is Tobias sitting in for Christy. We're talking to Santos Bonacci about many things. Where were we? Oh, yes. How do we now, so to combat this planetary piracy inculcated through fear and control from the animalistic level, in the sense of the bad animalistic level, being stuck down in the solar plexus, flight and fight, and having to kill or be killed with each other. How can we help combat that individually? In other words, we may feel overwhelmed by it. So how can an individual start to unhook themselves, unaddict themselves from being addicted to this fear system on the planet? What can we do?
We have to knowledge and growth. This is what path we've chosen. We've chosen to be responsible. When you grow in your soul evolution, you take on the responsibility of saving yourself and correcting erroneous ways, discarding opinions for true knowledge, shedding the labels, shedding the desire to want to belong. You see, if you're belonging to a football club or this or that and everything, it keeps the corporations going. I mean, you can only ascend once you have separated yourself from the world or the desires of the world from you, from within, the entanglements and the shows and the spectacles and the fame and the glory that you think you can get out there, which you can't. It's all an illusion. They offer it to you, you see, so that you can just buy into their schemes. Well, we were warned thousands of years ago by Hermes. Watch out for the dark ages, he said. Be careful. That's the age when there's a trickster on every corner, a salesman everywhere, a priest, a fool, that will want you to contract with them and join their corporations. If you have a label like a Jehovah's Witness or a Seventh-day Adventist, I'd be getting rid of it as quick as possible. Run for the hills. Get out of her, my people, for she will fall in 1 hour. Babylon the Great. A system of worldwide empire and enslavement run by the elites through the Vatican and through all their other perverse prostitute little organizations. Some of them call themselves Christians, believe it or not. But they're all wanting their brand. Come on, join the brand. Well, these brands are going to be defunct very soon. We're coming into a world where there ain't going to be no labels. There ain't going to be no buffoons with their corporations and elites running the show and police officers being policy officers and young boys joining the army to go kill people that they've never, ever seen before.
The whole house of cards is falling down, isn't it? And we really need to unplug ourselves, unhook ourselves from this system and reconnect to something that's real, nature, our bodies, our own internal systems. Yeah?
That's right.
Yeah. So, yeah, we have to unhook from it. And this is also like in the movie The Matrix. You need to get up out of your vat and take the tubes out of you and unhook from the system. And that comes from an intention, you know, because you're, like Santos is saying, they're never going to deliver. All that's promised in all those adverts and commercials, none of it ever gets delivered. Never, never. You know, it doesn't get delivered to you. The carrot is never allowed. The donkey never gets the carrot. So you got to find what's real sustenance. Yeah. What do you do, Santos, to help you connect after you're coming out of the Jehovah's Witnesses? What is it that's internal, or do you do some practices, meditation, anything like that you would suggest to people, or do you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Correct breathing. Learn how to breathe. Good way to learn how to breathe is to sit in a bathtub, as full as you can, and then take in a breath and let the bottom of your belly expand, and you can see the water level raising. And this is a great way to sort of deep down. As you breathe in, you expand. As you breathe out, you contract. And 95% of man today are doing the opposite. They don't know how to breathe. I would correct the breathing. I would do some yoga. When I do yoga, I spend time doing my own stretches. I find my own way to stretch. You know, I might, go to the kitchen where the tiles are at night. My wife will be sleeping or something, and I'll go to the tiles where there's the boards don't creak as much, and I can just do my stretching. I might do a little bit of salsa or merengue or something like that.
Move.
Yeah, because that's the best meditation. Dancing, my God.
Yeah.
And this is why the Christians, Calvin would kill people for, the Calvinists were killing people for dancing.
My girlfriend Santos grew up inside a strict church, and it's a strange connection we have, because I was onto this when we met, and it's been an interesting one. But they used to have a saying at their church: "We can't dance, so we might as well eat," or something. Anyway, the usual thing was they're not allowed to dance. The church prohibited dancing. Nowadays, crazy.
Yeah, because it's yoga. It's spiritual.
Yeah.
It is what will make you young again.
Yeah,
it will make you young again, to sing and to play music and to dance.
I have to tell you, I play guitar too, and I remember one time, it's happened so many times, but I pick up the guitar and open the voice, I've had my energy heal instantly. Have you had that experience?
Oh, yeah.
It's like Keith Richards. I just read it from Rolling Stones. Just read his book here. It was an interesting book. He's a very bright guy, you know. He wrote that if he could get on stage, even if he had 102, 103-degree fever, if he could hit the first song and get into it, he said, I would get healed. I would heal myself.
Yeah.
He would literally heal himself. If I could get halfway into the first song, it would just all drain from me. So getting the energy moving in your body, whether it's moving or just go for a walk, play with your dog, sit and learn to breathe. The yogic breathing is key as well. Absolutely. Yeah, moving music. I'm sick of that music being in dark places where everyone's drinking alcohol. I always felt like I want to bring it out under the sun. You know, I want it here now in the light of day. Both are okay, but I want to bring it back to what it's meant to be. Pan, Dionysus. Let's bring them back to where it's pure, where it's love, where it's enjoyable. You know.
That's right. That's right. Sanity. Bring back the sanity. We can dance and sing on the streets. We can have a brotherhood of one religion. We don't need. I've proven that we do have only one religion, and the sooner we face it, the more united we will be. I've proven it. My 9 videos on the Aspect YouTube site prove that we have one religion/science. Well, let's face it.
Beautiful. That's a great place to end, Santos. Thanks so much for being with us. Maybe we can do it again. And if you're interested in more of Santos's work, go to universaltruthschool.com or look him up, Santos Bonacci, on YouTube. And it's been a privilege. I get excited. I know I could spend weeks with you on this, but I will definitely be watching more of your videos. Thanks so much, Santos, for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody. And Christy will be back regularly on Monday, and maybe she'll let me host again on some Fridays in the future. Thanks, everybody.
No rules. No rules. No taboo topics. No taboo topics. No fear of doom. No fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.